Welcome to Yankee T News, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to WCFR, Connecticut Free Radio District 4. Welcome to this podcast this evening. We have a special guest with us this evening, potential congressional candidate in District 5 of the state of Connecticut, which is just above Fairfield County in the Danbury area. We have Mr. Jonathan DeBarros running against the incumbent Jahana Hayes for the federal congressional seat in District 5 for the state of Connecticut. Couple of things. Mr. DeBarros was just recently on the Lara Logan show, and I understand that he'll probably be making an appearance on Steve Bannon, and we're grateful to have him with us here this evening. A couple of questions that will, if you're in the chat or the feed, feel free to ask any questions. If we don't get to the questions, Jonathan will give his contact information. He'll share his Facebook page, and you can get in touch with him any way possible through those links and through that information. Jonathan DeBarros, welcome this evening to this podcast.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you for the opportunity. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I guess what I'd like to do is just start off on, there's been a lot of infighting within the Republican Party in this particularly in this election cycle, the likes of which I haven't seen probably ever. And I would contribute this to a variety of different factors that are going on. Now, one of my pet peeves or my primary complaints about, I guess, what's being called State Central, which is the sort of an administrative body that, a politic that orchestrate potential GOP candidates that are running in states elections at the state level and or the federal level and in some local elections as well. And it just seems like there's been a huge, it's just a huge mess to me, in my mind. Now, I think it was around at the beginning of this gubernatorial race in Connecticut, we had the head of the State Central, the chairman, Ben Proto, and I understand that he was propping up Aaron Stewart. The appearance was as he seemed to be in Aaron Stewart's corner. And then, of course, you had Ryan Fazio, who seemed to be like, I guess, what we would call the heir apparent, because he had run several elections and won those elections as well. I would say that he was kind of a shoo-in for the seat that he took, only because his predecessor had to vow out of the political race and that sort of thing. So in my opinion, he's kind of had it a little bit easy, but I think he feels he's sort of the incumbent to run for the GOP seat in the gubernatorial race. And so there's that element to it. Now, my pet peeve with Ben Proto has been, and I've brought this up intermittently, where I cannot for the life of me understand how Mr. Proto, being who he is, I understand he's an attorney in the state. I understand, now this is what I heard, and I don't know if there's any merit to the fact that when Bob Stefanowski was running for governor, Aaron Stewart was being pushed out as maybe a potential lieutenant governor or LG in that position, but some people had said, yeah, no, she's no good because she's got a past and not a good one at that. And so I guess what they were hoping is none of that stuff would come to light, but as we all know, that came back to bite them in the butt. So here we are. Aaron Stewart is out of the gubernatorial race. Your nemesis in the GOP, Chris Shea, I don't really, I mean, outside of his military service and so forth, I really don't know much about him. And what I'd like to do, I guess, one of the things that we can do this evening is maybe try to flesh out what some of the contentiousness surrounding this race, particularly with Chris Shea. I understand that there's been a concerted effort to undermine your campaign. And this is just the nature of politics, I guess, no matter where you are. And and a, it almost seems like the Democrats are just sitting back and watching the Republicans within the state sort of, devour themselves. But my whole point in this exercise, and I think that this is very important for the audience to understand, there needs to be a house cleaning, particularly within the GOP in the state of Connecticut. And I've long felt this. Now, there have been things said about Chris Shea, which I don't really know if they're true or not, but I understand that he's been keeping company with Ben Proto. Now, how, in my mind, how could Ben Proto, who is the chairman of the state central, and who basically is supposed to be the proponent of and the advocate for the candidates he puts forth, how he could not have known that Aaron Stewart was basically a dog with fleas, to use a colloquial term, and for 18 months. And how could he not know any of these things that have come to light about her or her campaign and this sort of thing? So there's that component of it. But what I would like you to do this evening is basically maybe share with us what your goals are in terms of policy. Share with us what you intend to do as a candidate and how you're going to represent your constituents in your district.
Well, I filed my candidacy with the Federal Election Commission back in March of 2025. I was the first candidate in CT5 to file. I've been actively campaigning for this seat since last year, and I got a ground swell of support on the grassroots level. I've campaigned all throughout the district. I hit every town fair that you could think of last summer, as I would do again this summer, but I'm aggressively campaigning against the Democrats inside the city. Last July, I got invited to the White House by the Trump administration under the leadership of Lynn Patton, who's in charge of his policies and engagement. She invited members of the Black Conservative Federation from across the country, and we came in from Chicago, Detroit, Los Angeles, and all across the country. And I came in from Connecticut, and they wanted us to attend a press briefing inside the Peace Treaty room across from the West Wing in the Eisenhower building. And inside that press briefing, they had the rollout of the Big Beautiful Bill. And they wanted us to understand what was in the Big Beautiful Bill and how it was going to benefit the urban community, because they wanted us to be able to go back into our community to articulate President Trump's platform and his policies, and to explain to them what the American First agenda was, because it was supposed to unify the entire country as it is, in my opinion, because President Trump has done something that no other Republican has done, in my opinion, since Abraham Lincoln. He has over in 2016 he got 8% of the black vote. 2012, 2020 he got 12% of the black vote, and then after Black Lives Matter and George Soros funding and all that nonsense that transpired after the George Floyd incident, President Trump's number doubled in the black community. He got 24% of the black vote, and that's with voter fraud. So we're talking about close to 30% if you take out voter fraud. So
right.
President Trump has aggressively campaigned in the urban community for a long period of time. I mean, even back in 2016, that was one of his main focal points. He called black people out. Like, what do you got to lose? Like, your schools are failing. Your communities are in shambles. The Democrats have done absolutely nothing for you in the last 60 years. And, some people got offended by his statement, but quite honestly, that's something that we needed to hear. And that's why President Trump received not only the electoral vote, but he got the popular vote as well. So my goal is to go into the communities that Republicans traditionally ignored, because you can't flip this district unless you get 40% of the urban vote, and that's split between 4 cities: Danbury, Waterbury, Meriden, and New Britain. And I got a sliver of Torrington. I was born and raised in the city of Waterbury, Connecticut, the same city as the Democrat incumbent, Johanna Hayes. She never had no one campaign against her aggressively on her own turf that can't be bought, sold, or taken advantage of. And she's terrified of my campaign because I'm a proud MAGA supporter, unlike George Logan, who ran against her. And George Logan, in my opinion, he wasn't the right candidate because he didn't resonate inside the communities that we need to win. And my policies, one of the main things that I want to do is I want to bring financial literacy training program opportunities to the urban community. We got far too many people in the urban community dependent on government subsidies. 30% of the city residents are on government subsidies. Section 8 housing, SNAP benefits. I want to create a mandatory job training program for anybody that's currently enrolled in any type of federal subsidies. And I'm not talking about our handicapped. I'm not talking about disabled. I'm talking about able-bodied adults. Let's put some federal funding behind the job training program, create a test with an algorithm. Based upon the test results, we can guide them to different career goal opportunities, put funding behind that, and pair them with a mentor in that industry to help them get back on their feet so that they could be self-sufficient and less dependent on the government. And that will reduce the tax burden on everybody else. And then we could start attracting more businesses back to the state of Connecticut.
So I guess I want to sort of peel back the layers of the onion. Now, you had mentioned, so the way you framed this is that you're seeking to provide federal funding. I mean, it almost, I mean, superficially maybe it seems counterintuitive to provide federal funding, and the end goal is to get people to become self-sufficient. So there's a dependency on federal funding in order to accomplish that goal. Maybe you could take this as a little bit of a pushback, but what would you say to people that would say, well, you're approaching this from a federally funding, which is something that Democrats might do?
Well, sometimes you got to take some things that make sense. It doesn't matter who thought of it. Democrats definitely, they don't do this. My whole thing is inside my job training program, it's a 3-year cutoff. So if you don't get yourself together within that 3-year period, you get cut off for all your subsidies.
Right.
It doesn't make sense to keep people on Section 8 housing for 30 years.
I agree with you there.
Or does it make more sense to put federal funding to train them so that they can be self-sufficient within 2 years?
I understand. Point well taken, and point well made, actually. So the other thing that I don't think that and Ryan Fazio has started to talk about this more. I think that if I'm completely honest, I think some of his proposals are kind of paltry and lack teeth, if you will. There's not really a whole lot of meat on the bone. Now, I would like to see inroads being made to attract businesses back into the state of Connecticut. Now I understand that there will be federal dollars going back. I think Connecticut's primary industries right now they have the military contracts with Electric Boat and Sikorsky. And then I understand that in the private sector, we have the insurance, business. And my sort of axe to grind about that is, well, in the insurance business doesn't really produce anything. It's predicated on the law of chance, if you will, or the proposition that something's going to go wrong in people's life. It doesn't really produce anything. It's just basically throwing money into a pot, and then insurance is kind of a lottery. If you get what I mean, if you understand how it works, it's kind of like a lottery in a way. You know, there X amount of people are going to get into crashes or collisions or maybe need medical assistance or help or whatever. I mean, of course, insurance covers that. But when I'm talking about bringing genuine, bona fide productivity back to the state of Connecticut, military contracts aside, I'm talking about like inventions and you know and industry in the private sector. Now, one idea that I had, and maybe this is something that you could run with, and if should you become the representative for District 5, one of my ideas, and this is a proposal that I actually put forth to Ryan Fazio's father. And he actually liked the idea because he knows people in the business. And what I'm talking about specifically is the shipping business. Now, Connecticut has all of this coastline that's, you know, unrealized revenue. Now, certainly the developers like to get in there and create, you know, high-end condos or homes, and so they develop the waterfront on that area. But you have Bridgeport, Stratford, and I think New Haven. Now, New Haven is situated where they bring in shipping, oil tankers come in, and either they make their fuel dumps there, and so there's some kind of import-export paradigm going on within the energy industry, if you will. So it seems to me to be logical because we could pull some of the business away from New Jersey and New York and then exploit that here in Bridgeport. Now, I think in Bridgeport, you'd probably have to dredge some of the channels there for some of the bigger boats. But I'm not talking about the like big giant, container ships. I'm talking about like medium or small size container ships, and you would create an industry of a shipping industry for all intents and purposes, or you would at least bring it here to Connecticut, which would present a lot of opportunities for work, to people that would want to move to Connecticut or stay in Connecticut, actually. So is that something that you would be on board with or amenable to?
Absolutely, that's a great idea. But just like what Betsy was talking about when she was running for governor, we got to also bring down the cost of energy here. I mean, she had a great idea of suing Kathy Hochul and the state of New York for blocking that natural pipeline from coming in from Pennsylvania through New York into Connecticut to give competition against Eversource, because the cost of the energy cost here is out of control. When you got a monopoly on the cost of utilities and water and natural gas, you're going to scare away any type of industry, because that's, a lot of the fear of coming to Connecticut is just too costly to do business here. On
True.
top of the taxes, and that's why I was talking about the federal funded job training program, because we got too many people on government subsidies in our state. Prior to the 200,000 illegals we got currently residing, this was already a welfare dump state where people came from all across the country,
Right.
especially Florida and elsewhere, to get on Section 8 housing or to get free medical insurance.
Right.
I mean,
And none of that money gets circulated back into the system because, they got people living all up and down the East Coast, or they, the money that goes out the window. I think that Connecticut needs to really seriously think about, well, and Betsy's whole plan was to also eliminate the state income tax. I thought that was a fantastic idea. There are already a number of states, I think at least 10 or 12 states that have already done it, and they're basically bringing businesses in. I can't, for the life of me, understand why this is something the Republicans aren't latching onto and aren't like demanding. I mean, the people want it. It's like, is it more important to get reelected or elected, or to actually represent? Now, I mean, you can't represent unless you get elected, of course, but, there seems to be this almost a career mentality around politics. I think politics has become the religion of the masses these days. in lieu of actually going to church. But that's an entirely different subject. Uh, I think that I one of the things I really like about you is that you're out there pounding the pavement, and you're out there getting the work, doing the actual work, doing the door knocking, meeting and greeting people, and doing those things. And that to me is inspiring. When I see that, and it's like, because everybody is saying, he can't do it, he doesn't have the votes, and all this, and all of these naysayers. It's like, a person who puts in the work, the most amount of work in my mind, is the one that deserves to hold the position, because they're, you're showing initiative, and you're hungry for it. And that to me is like, that speaks volumes to me. And so that's why I'm grateful that you're running, and that we have somebody like you. You're inspiring. I think also a lot of perhaps younger and up and coming political potentials. You know, so I think that that's great. I see you got Frederick Douglass in the back there. So you must be familiar with K. Carl Smith. Have you ever been to one of his talks?
Yes, I got photos with him. I have his book signed and autographed by him as well. Very inspiring man that actually, listen, I was shocked. I just met some Republicans who are in their 60s that didn't know who Frederick Douglass was, and I'm like we really have to start. We really have to start educating everyone.
Right.
Everyone. American history has to be retaught again, because when you got people from different age categories in America not knowing who um, the founding members of one of the most revolutionary um, parties in American history, which is the Republican Party, um, that's to me that's alarming, because he advised 5 United States sitting presidents. I went to his house in February when I was down in Washington D.C. It's a historical landmark, and I'm walking his grounds, and I'm going through a 7-bedroom mansion, and I really, it was a humbling experience, but it also was inspiring, because for the liberals to tell young black kids or black women tell their child that they're oppressed in 2026 because of racial discrimination, they can't do anything because of white people. I get upset, because I'm like, hold up, Frederick Douglass, when he died in 1895, he was worth $300,000, which is probably the equivalent of what would you say, what, $10 million today, or close to it.
Probably, maybe even a little bit more. You know.
Absolutely. This man traveled around the world when black people were still in slavery. He went to England and spoke at universities, speaking about the ill of slavery, and he was a proud supporter of the abolitionist movement. He didn't get his freedom and just forget where he came from. He actually fought, and he was the advisor of 5 sitting United States presidents. And you know, this is something that needs to be taught to everyone.
I, I
John.
completely agree with you, and I think the uh, the black culture that has settled here in in the Americas, and particularly in North America, um, and at least in the American ethos, the cultures, what the black community has contributed to American culture is completely inseparable from America itself. I think there's a I mean, I would almost call it providential in some way, because they've given us art, music, gospel, and they've some of our hymns come from some of the old Negro spirituals, songs that are sung in churches and so forth. I mean, so in my mind, the that sense or that culture is forever woven into the fabric of America. And I don't know if you ever, I saw that movie with Matthew Broderick. It was called Glory, and it was about the 54th Regiment that fought. It was just explicitly black regiment that fought in the Civil War for the North during the Civil War. So, that's historically profound to me as well.
And even before that, you got Crispus Attucks.
Yep. He started the whole revolution. Right. Crispus Attucks, yeah.
And that was the first integrated grave site. They buried them together, the British, because he was the first one to get shot. But then all his patriots that stood behind him, they were executed as well during the Boston Massacre, and they buried them together.
Right.
And a lot of people don't know that history. So when black people see,
and that's exactly
1776, people don't realize, like, bro, we were part of that. Peter Salem was a marksman that shot one of the generals during, I think it was the Battle of Bunker Hill, right? During the American Revolution.
That's right.
These are the things. If they taught American history in the public school system, you wouldn't need Black History Month. Black History Month
it's American history. It's part of American history.
It's part of American history, but they try to separate us because
right.
The NAACP was a Marxist organization that W.E.B. Du Bois was the forefront and started pushing this Marxist agenda because he hated Booker T. Washington, who started the Tuskegee Institute, which was teaching the former slaves how to be self-sufficient through vocational training programs, becoming electricians,
that's right.
plumbers,
yep.
gardeners.
And most people don't realize that blacks were Republicans, initially.
Exactly. So when white people look at me like, "What are you doing? You're a Republican?" Like, yes. Like this is the party that freed my people from slavery, and this was the party that fought for civil rights in the 1960s. If it wasn't for the Republicans, the 80% of the Republicans in the House and in the Senate, they would have never even passed the Civil Rights Bill at that point in time.
That's right.
Because it was the Democrats that filibustered the bill with Senator Strom Thurmond, the same senator that created the 1994 crime bill with Joe Biden, which made 5 grams of crack equal to 500 grams of powder because they knew that crack cocaine was predominantly in the black community and they wanted to make money from the school to prison pipeline. Mass incarceration.
Man, I remember when all that blew up in the 80s. I mean, it's like the whole, it was cocaine and pot basically back in the late 70s and early 80s. And yeah, I mean, I had a lot of friends that got mixed up in that stuff too. And of course, New York City was was a very different place back then. And that was like right around the time, I think it was Davis, what was his name, was mayor. David Dinkins was mayor then, and then Ed Koch came in, and then Giuliani cleaned up the whole thing. He went after the mob bosses and the whole thing. And that's what needs to happen here in Connecticut. I mean, Waterbury, I just don't understand. Like, people can see the writing on the wall. And then you have Ned Lamont out there bragging about how great, Connecticut is. I mean, has anybody, that has not left their district and taken a drive, like, in parts of New Haven or New London, Waterbury, or Bridgeport, parts of Shelton and stuff? I mean, it's like going into a third world country in these places. And so that to me is not an element of success. All of those places are like unrealized revenue, unrealized wealth creation, areas. And they're just letting them rot and decay and keeping people codependent on the government, like you were pointing out before. And it's sad. It's really sad, and Ganem, gosh, how long has he been in there? I mean, I just think the whole thing is mafia run. And I'm certain that there's a gang component to all of this too. There's a cash cow there, and there seems to be like this like dark spell over people that don't want to move, like don't upset the apple cart, don't talk about that, don't bring it up or whatever. But I think people have had enough, honestly. I just think people have had enough. I think people, in the urban areas have been exploited and taken advantage of and, excuse my expression, and shit on, quite honestly. And I'm sick of it. I'm just sick of watching it. My nephew, he'd been in and out of the system. He was living up in Bridgeport, and the penal system, or the Department of Corrections. It's like, what do they do with these guys? They get them on these programs, and they do nothing for these guys. They do absolutely nothing, and it's just a revolving door, and it's just a way to keep feeding the machine, keep the programs alive, and keep the federal or wherever they get that money from coming in, and it's job security for a lot of these people that are working in the federal level. And I understand that in Connecticut, federal jobs just continue, or state jobs, I should say, continue to expand and expand, while in the private sector keeps contracting and contracting. So I don't know if you want to speak to that at all, but please.
Oh, listen, that's exactly what's going on. I went through the system, so I know full well what you're talking about. This system was designed to have the revolving door syndrome. It was never set up for us to get the skills that we need so that we won't reoffend. I mean, there's tools in there that you have to find on your own, and that's what I did. And you gotta want it too, but sometimes you also gotta take into consideration. Some people don't even know. Like, if you bring someone to your house and you got apples and oranges on the table, but you got bananas underneath the table, and people are eating apples and oranges, and then you turn around and say, why didn't you eat the banana? But you hid the bananas. You know what I'm saying? They're only gonna grab the opportunities that they see, right? So that's why I want the job training program, so I can teach these people how to be self-sufficient, because they don't know. And I'm not making excuses for them, because you still gotta want it, right?
Right.
And these are the things, but it's very important. But we can't just rule everybody out. That's one thing Republicans do. They say, "Oh, those people in the cities, they don't vote. They want free shit. They want free stuff, and they're not going to vote." I'm like, dude, 70% of the people in the cities go to work every day and pay taxes like everybody else. You don't think they don't want to pay lower taxes? You don't think they don't want to pay lower utility bills? Why don't you go into these communities and explain to them what the public benefits charge is and how they're getting ripped off and who's responsible for it? Because
Yeah.
nine times out of 10, when you go into the urban community and you ask people what party is running this city,
Exactly.
they don't even know.
Exactly.
They think the Republicans run the city.
Well, here's the other thing too, Jonathan. I was speaking with somebody earlier today about the process, and many people that want to run, like as Republicans, let's say, in the state of Connecticut, don't even know how the process works. And quite honestly, there's a lot of it I still don't know. And I've been intermittently involved with, I've worked in a number of different campaigns here in the state, but there's a lot of bureaucracy, layers of bureaucracy. You got to raise this much money, and you can only raise it like this, and you got to get access to poll books, and you got to get and a lot of the times the tools that you need in order to win are either being, people aren't willing to actually work with you or help you because they got their guy or they got their girl that they're, taking care of or whatever. And it's just like, look, we're all trying to get to the finish line, and it's really, I wish, people could set their egos aside. And this is kind of one of my things about, um, uh, uh, well, I'll bring up Chris Shea. I think he had said something, and you put a clip up there. He didn't want to debate, and I'm like, look, this is part of the process. You know, it's not like you're in the club with your friends, and your friends are gonna basically like push the other guys out. You're all on the same damn team for crying out loud. And so, an honest person would step up to the plate and shoot their shot and just say, look, this is what I want. This is what I propose to do. And these are my ideas. And then you get up there and you present your ideas and your path forward. And, may the best man win. And that's how it should be. But, people don't want to play like that anymore. And I'm really tired of it.
It's handed to them. It's handed to them, so they think they feel entitled because the establishment picked them to be the person, and I didn't ask anybody for permission. I went and did the right thing, and I introduced myself to the state GOP before I made my announcement that I was running. I introduced myself to Ben Proto. I met with party leadership like Steve Harden and Rob Sampson. And when I introduced myself to Ben Proto, he said, I'm going to tell you like I tell everybody else. You have to first explain to me how you plan to raise $500,000 by the end of the year before I run you for Congress. And I'm like, you don't want to know my policies. You don't want to know why I want to run. You just want to know how I'm going to raise the money. Like, that's all his concern.
Right. Well, this is the problem. Running for an office is all about raising money instead of actually representing people. And that is a colossal problem in this state. And that's part and parcel why I think Republicans can't get any traction in this state whatsoever. And I understand there are a lot of campaigns that haven't raised the money or whatever, but that have fantastic ideas. And people are hungry for those ideas. But what do they want to do? They want to force feed us mediocrity. And that's exactly what's going on. That's what Ben Proto is all about. Force feeding the people mediocrity. I hate to say it, but what was it, the last go around in the gubernatorial race? He put up Bob Stefanowski. Like, look, I don't have anything against Bob Stefanowski personally, but when I saw him debate Lamont, I was like, I was looking at Lamont and I was looking at Bob Stefanowski and just thinking to myself, that's Lamont, and that's Lamont with extra cream or heavy cream or something. It's just like, what are they doing? It's like if there's really no policy difference between the two, then how are people actually even getting a choice any longer?
I mean, it's all about design. I mean, let's just call it what it is. It's a uniparty in the state of Connecticut. We got too many Democrats masquerading as Republicans that infiltrated the GOP, and they're all corrupt.
Well, that's what that's what they're accusing you of. Some people are accusing you of.
I mean, does it make sense?
No, well, this look, my whole thing was just like, why? Okay, they've already got a Democrat there. It's like
you've been losing elections for 20 years. Why would the Democrats want me going into the black community telling them to support President Trump? Does that make sense?
Exactly.
Does that make sense?
Right.
Why would I be attacking Johanna Hayes, exposing the corruption in her church, Grace Baptist Church, receiving an earmark from Christopher Murphy and Dick Blumenthal in the tune of $810,000?
Well, but I think, yeah, and I think the reason why. Also, why and look, I've been accused of being a Democrat shill too, because I'm calling out the bullshit in the Republican Party. People are tired of the bullshit. They're about the bullshit. That's what it is. So,
and my supporters, they know damn well. I've been at Trump rallies since 2024, going into Madison Square Garden. All you gotta do is YouTube the Madison Square Garden event. I was right behind President Trump. What Democrat plant is going to all these Trump rallies? And I've been crisscrossing the whole country supporting President Trump, and everybody knows it. So that's all BS. They're just mad because I'm calling them out on their nonsense.
Well, so here's the other Well, so right, so and I don't know, I guess some people think that because you were pardoned by a Democrat governor, that there's something to that, or whatever,
Okay.
like
First of all, I got pardoned by a parting
panel,
panel
right?
under underneath, and some of those the people that was on the pardon panel, I don't know if they were all Democrats or not. Some of them was law enforcement, former probation officers that were on parole officers. I don't know, but it was underneath Ned Lamont's administration. So let me ask you something: if you were a Republican, you're not going to take a pardon from a Democrat governor?
Right. Yeah, it's like right. It's like that's just pride, I mean, that's if people would say, yeah, I can never do that, but this is kind of the pushback. Look, a lot of people are unhappy with a lot of people are unhappy with Trump's international policy, and if I'm completely frank, I've been kind of a little bit disappointed with it too. I'd like to see the cost of fuel, go back to like maybe $2.85 a gallon or whatever. I'd even be okay with maybe $3 a gallon, but I think where we are right now. Go ahead.
Yeah, but I mean, the Straits of Hormuz is supposed to be opening up soon, but we also got to take in consideration that Iran had.
Well, this could also be this could also be the backdrop to preventing or screwing up our midterm elections, because isn't it? I mean, is it any coincidence that all of this is kind of leading up to the midterm elections as well, right? So I don't know.
I mean, what I do know is that they had so many different uranium enrichment facilities buried on the ground that was above, close to being weapon grade uranium. Our Secretary of War said that they got intel that they were on the verge of creating a nuclear weapon. Now, if you think about this, right? If President Trump waited until the midterms to handle that situation, and God forbid we lose the House and they tie his hands behind his back and impeach him, and then we going through this whole impeachment process, but in the meantime, Iran's on the verge of getting a weapon, and then we lose the House, and then we lose the White House in 2028. Bam, they got a nuclear weapon. They're gonna bully. They already was bullying us. Look at the Democrats. Look how much billions of dollars was sent to them underneath Obama and Joe Biden.
Right.
When Hillary Clinton was in 2016, what did Hillary Clinton say? She was going to take out Iran.
Right.
As soon as Trump does what they was talking about doing, now it's the problem. Because these people are treasonous. My whole thing is, I'd rather pay a little bit more now at the gas pump than a full-fledged war with Iran with nuclear weapons. And then it doesn't matter what the price of gas is.
Right. It's excessive, but I don't think it's not untenable. It's excessive, but it's not untenable. It's probably the only way I could delicately put it, probably, for people that are still on the fence about it. The other topic of discussion I wanted to cover, that's going on in Connecticut is the obviously the ICE situation. And then, of course, the recent disposal of events with, is it Ramirez, the Ramirez woman, or
Melissa Ramirez?
Yeah, Melissa.
I was just down there. I went to a court hearing. Yeah, I went to a court hearing.
Okay, and they're basically trying to, and I earlier this year I was up in Hartford. I think it was A.G. Tong was talking about, I think he was addressing the whole problem with, and he's speaking about the state of Connecticut like it's a sovereign country. And it's like, it just defies any kind of logic how this guy is where he is. But, I think we know why. And in my humble opinion, I think he's a CCP operative. I mean, straight up. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I just think that that's what's going on. And Carl Higbee said he gave a talk up at Cadillac Ranch a few months ago, and he was basically saying, look, you know, with respect to Lamont, even though he's been moving us, even though he's a Democrat, he's been holding the line with some of the more aggressive policies that the Democrats want to implement. You know, really, it's
I was
kind of,
here when you spoke.
you know, the house is on fire. You know,
Listen,
there's
and Josh Elliott, he just got he just hired me and Dami's team with
yeah,
our tax dollars. So
yeah,
when he
that needs
unlocked
to be
his
said.
grant money,
You know, I honestly do. I hope you get more national attention because the state of Connecticut needs we need eyes on the state of Connecticut. That we need the department, the DOJ, and whoever else. We need eyes on what's actually happening here, and you know, if God willing, if there would actually be people would be held accountable for, you know, for the suffer the consequences for their wrongdoing, be held accountable for what they've done, been doing. I mean, that's my other thing. It's just like the people that least deserve to be going through, going through it, are just getting, hammered, like with the finances and everything. And all of our state, like many of our state representatives, are just out there lecturing everybody on what the most moral thing to do, or about affordable housing and the rest of it. And I'm just sick and tired of it. It's just like they're talking to all of us like we're children or something, and that's got to stop. And it's
and
usually
and
all of these Harvard and Yale, these people that went to these institutions of higher learning kind of BS.
but,
You know,
we got to point out the elephant in the room. We got to tell the full story. I mean, because I tell the truth and everybody knows I'm transparent and I don't back down and I just speak the truth, and that's why I got so much support. Somebody came to me and told me that I need to look into Ben Proto's relationship with low income housing developments, and I looked it up and I found it right away. Our chairman is an attorney that has been working for Gold Coast Properties LLC, that's owned by Steven Shapiro, who actually is helping to fund my Republican primary opponent. Um,
I
what
heard
Ben
about
Proto has
this.
been doing.
I heard about
Yeah,
this.
he's suing small conservative towns to make them to accept Democrat zoning regulations for low income housing developments, and then they're gonna make us subsidize the living expenses of these low income housing residents.
But
And,
how
and
is
it's
that
not
any?
all the numbers.
How is that any different than what the Democrats have been doing? Honestly, I mean,
Listen,
this
my
is
thing is this: people calling me a Democrat plant for telling the truth, and with a MAGA hat on and going into the hood and waking everybody up. Listen, we see through your BS. I know what's going on, and other people know what's going on as well. And I find it hard to believe that our state Republican senators and state representatives did not know that Benjamin Proto was suing these towns and enriching himself and enriching probably some of those state central committee members.
right.
It's a mafia. It's a gang. They're a
Yep.
gang, and it's time to clean up the gang and get their asses out of our seats. Because if we don't take back our Republican Party and stop being controlled opposition against the Democrats, we've been losing elections, in my opinion, on purpose. Because I'm the first candidate to go into the cities that could get the 40% of the votes that we need in order for us to actually get a seat in the House of Representatives. And they're fighting me tooth and nail like never before, to stop me from doing it.
Right.
Why? Because they're benefiting some type of way with Johanna Hayes being in that seat. Because everybody that got two eyeballs and two ears knows that my Republican opponent cannot. He's gonna get demolished by Johanna Hayes. You think George Logan lost by a lot? This dude, he's not even gonna make an attempt to talk to people in the urban community. He got handpicked residents in New Britain who were former Aaron Stewart supporters. New Britain don't respect those people. We had a special election for Bob Sanchez's seat, he left the state assembly, became the mayor of New Britain. Jamie Vaughan had a special election. He was trying to run for that seat because that seat opened up. And Iris Sanchez ran, a woman who was evicted from her apartment. We went door knocking, and I'm telling you, Republicans were not receptive to the Republican Party of New Britain. They don't respect them. They couldn't even get 1,000. We have 4,800 registered Republicans in the city of New Britain. They couldn't even get in that district. They couldn't even get 1,000 people to go to the polls. It was a low voter turnout. Less than 900 people voted on both sides. Wild. And she won that seat at the special election. Now, how does that happen? I'm just telling you, when you got a city of 73,000 people and you got less than 5,000 registered Republicans, but yet your mayor is a Republican, a three-term Republican, who was voting for? Democrats.
Exactly.
So I'm just telling you, I'm just pointing out the facts, what's going on. When Aaron Stewart went to go meet with President Trump in 2018, she told me this herself. She went there specifically because she was trying to capitalize off of Senator Tim Scott's economic opportunity zone to get funding for low-income housing developments, infrastructure projects. The threshold that President Trump set in the beginning, I think you had to have a city of a population of 130,000 or more. And she didn't reach that threshold. So she went to sit with President Trump and Senator Tim Scott to explain to them how her city of 107, her city of just 73,000 could benefit from the economic opportunity zones if you could reduce that threshold, which they did. And then I believe that's how she started to do a lot of development projects, because she got the federal funding that she needed from the economic opportunity zone.
Right.
And but which is a great thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but my whole argument is who benefited from it.
Like, exactly.
I mean, was it the developers or was it the people that live in the community, the taxpayers? You know what I'm saying? So if we're gonna be truthful, we need to start. If we're gonna share or benefit from President Trump's policies, it shouldn't be only a certain small group of people. We should disclose this information to the general public so that we can get the general public back to work, because we got a lot of people with great ideas, but they don't know where to go to implement those ideas.
Right. It's most of the people who are in positions of power are just happy to, maintain the status quo, and be on the gravy train. And, that stuff's got to stop. It just has to. I don't see how this can go on indefinitely. And, just bad policy. And I would attribute this also is just to having a really very bad moral compass. They think they can solve, that government can solve all that ails, the public, and it can't. And, the public needs to be set free and let industry, let the markets dictate what people want, instead of, putting the finger on the scale and saying, well, this is what we should have, and that sort of thing. And just as an aside, I understand that MySpace, I loved MySpace when it was around. I mean, I was on there all the time, and that was a great social media platform, and you could customize your profile. So I understand that's coming back, and I understand it's also going to they're going to have it so that there's no algorithms like shifting, moving public influence or influencing the public to move one way or another. It's just kind of be like maybe it'll be a little bit like the Wild West, which would be kind of cool, right? So that'll be good. So I guess we got a few more minutes. We got about 6 more minutes here. So is there anything that you want to put out there for your potential voters, your constituents? And the other, I had 1 or 2 questions. You think Have you been on Reese on the radio? I think that would be really cool if you could get on his show, and
Yeah, I've been on.
I think it would also
Yeah, I've
be
been on recently.
okay, and it would really be cool if Tucker Carlson would give you some airtime. That would also be very cool because dude, I mean, you know what time it is here in the state of Connecticut. I mean, you're keeping it you're keeping it real, and so, I mean, there's like, look, I mean, when I first came to Connecticut, we lived in the projects and stuff like that. So, I kind of got a little bit of street smarts and stuff like that. So, I mean, you can tell when a person is just keeping it, 100. And I think I really believe you're that guy. And I honestly believe that you deserve every opportunity that you can get in order to represent the people in District 5. And I genuinely hope you get it. But anyway, so I just, let you run for the next, 4 or 5 minutes.
Well, I just want everybody to know that District 5, our Cook Partisan Index rating is a D+3 rated district. It's one of the only swing districts in our state. This is not no pipe dream. We could actually win this seat and take back the 5th and finally get a voice in Washington, D.C. But if you don't back me, I'm telling you, we will lose. And if you can't beat Jahana Hayes in a D+3 rated district, whoever's running for governor doesn't have a chance. You need this district in order for all our statewide ticket, including my hopeful. I love I can't even John Bolton
Okay.
running for attorney general.
Sure.
He's awesome. You got to interview him. He's a great guy.
I know
He
John.
has some-
Yes, John. John
Yeah.
is John is a very articulates himself very well. I've seen him in a few debates. I think when he was running in Westport for a state rep seat. But yes, he knows the lay of the land. He understands what's going on. I mean, he's an attorney. He knows the legal
Absolutely.
system.
And he's not and he broke free of the establishment. He's a free man now, and that's why I trust him. And I'm telling you right now, back me in this primary. If you back me in this primary, I'm going to carry the whole ticket on my back through the cities, and we're going to win across the finish line. Jahana Hayes' rating went from likely Democrat to safe Democrat after the convention because they knew that the Republican opponent, my Republican opponent that got the endorsement, they know he's not going to go into the cities. And that's what she doesn't want. So
Well,
if you
right.
guys back me.
So it just
we're
kind
gonna
of
win.
like, to me, it's kind of a no-brainer. It's just common sense, and if we're talking just purely about strategy here, and I think that you have a much better opportunity to carry that district. I honestly do. I mean, that's just my gut feeling about it. So anyway, well, listen, Jonathan, thanks for being here this evening. Really appreciate your feedback, your input, and the contributions and all of the good work you're doing there out of the state. Go to Jonathan DeBarros. Look him up on Facebook, District 5 for the congressional seat in the state of Connecticut. And let's get some support out there.
TheBarrelsForCongress.org. That's my website. And you guys could go on my website, and all my social media contact links are available at the bottom of the website.
Thanks a lot, Jonathan.
Thank you.